Hello, everybody. I'm Jay Hicks with Gerald Properties, and we're here to revive Goolrick's, but we're not in Goolrick's today. We're at the Lewis store on Caroline Street, part of the Historical Fredericksburg Foundation Incorporated, better known as HFFI, here in Fredericksburg, who do a considerable amount of work in preserving our historical context here in the city. We are one of the most historical cities in the country, best known for our Civil War and Revolutionary period time frames. But with Goolrick's, we're concentrating a little more on our modern times in the 20th century. And we wanted to take a deeper dive into the history particular to Goolrick's and downtown Fredericksburg. And so we've invited Danae Peckler, the Preservationist with HFFI, to join us today to tell us a little bit more of what we don't already know.
Thank you, Jay. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I'm so excited to be able to talk a little bit more, not only about HFFI's marker report, which we are very thankful that Gerald Properties has requested a marker on this unique historic building, but also about our organization. Of course, HFFI was established in 1955 in response to the demolition of the old kitchen accessory dwelling behind, or accessory building behind the National Bank, which is now many people know as Foodie. So we've been around for quite some time, but our marker report was established in 1989, and it's one of our more popular things. It fits well with our mission, which is to preserve, protect, and revitalize the distinct historic environment and the cultural resources of the Fredericksburg area.
And those are beyond what we talk about and understand are the colonial and Civil War periods, and really draws into all the properties for the city of Fredericksburg and the important history that's
You're
taken
exactly
place.
right. It's our cultural landscape is the way that we talk about it a lot. And really, honestly, just as Goolrick's has shown us through our study of this particular one property, it's a choose-your-own-adventure story. There are so many layers to all of these buildings that have been around for centuries that we could really explore and enjoy and take the time to understand, how the physical legacy of individuals and events is left behind in the built environment and the spaces that we occupy on the daily basis. Our marker program was started in 1989, and a marker report is essentially an intensive study of the occupational history of a building, the use and the ownership of it. So we use great things like deeds, chain of title. We create to know all the names of who owned it, but then we'll look at city directories to see who was living there. It's not necessarily the same thing, right? We use tax records to talk about the value of a property and understand how things might have changed over time, because of course our physical environment is one of the most substantial investments we typically make. So your building and the house and the other things you own says a lot about what you do and how you choose to divide the space that you live and interact in on a daily basis. So we look also at insurance policies, because we know that life has a way of happening, and those help us understand the built environment, as well as newspaper articles and census records and other kind of the paper trail that we all leave behind. And those are the fragments that a marker report will pick up for us to help us understand more about what happened in some of these places that are, like Goolrick's, more than 200 years old. So it's really, again, a pleasure, and I appreciate Gerald Properties' support in doing this, and of course for several other properties downtown that we're working on as well, because I think it illuminates, like I said, the complexity of the lives of the people that were there and the things that have happened. And Goolrick's is certainly a very, has turned out a lot of interesting events. It does not disappoint.
It is incredible. The layers, once you peel away the layers, all that is revealed. And you in particular, but HFFI have been a great asset to us in determining some of this history with Goolrick's, and we really appreciate you coming on board.
Right, thank you. And we should give due credit to Bill Shorter. William Shorter has been a volunteer with HFFI for decades, and he's written so many neighborhood histories and individual property histories through his marker report studies. So he's the one who conducted the research for this particular marker report, and I'm very happy to report on some of his findings and augment them as I further dived into some of the details of the interesting lives and people that have happened there.
Well, before we move on, if someone was interested in having a marker report conducted by HFI, is there a quick way to tell them how to engage with you?
Yes, you can certainly reach out on our website. We have an application to submit. You can also reach out to office@hffi.org. I will say it's very popular. We have had 350 to 400 marker reports, I think, or you'll see them by our iconic oval plaques that go onto each property that we've researched, and then we keep a copy of those reports upstairs in our property files so people can check them out.
So that all sounds really wonderful. We are in a position where we walk down Caroline Street and we're just able to see the exterior of Goolrick's as is today. Maybe some people have some memories of the past with some alterations over time. But that really doesn't paint the history of the building itself. Downtown Fredericksburg has been around since the early 17th century. Certainly this part of the city was an active portion of downtown. So there's more to be told about this property, which is what your marker program does for us and the various properties around the city of Fredericksburg. What did you find in particular with the Goolrick's property?
Oh, well, yes. I mean, it's really got a storied past. And I will say that Bill's research unveiled that a building could have been there as early as the 1790s, but it certainly was prime real estate. I mean, it is at the corner of Caroline and George, just down from the church, which would have been the center of government, actually, during the colonial period. So it really is in a good location there in between that and the river, which would have been the source of transportation and commerce. So as early as 1797, that's the first clear evidence that we have a building on the lot. It's actually a frame house that ends up getting destroyed in the Great Fire of 1807, which destroyed a substantial portion of our town. And so I think it's also really a testament to resilience that we actually see through local tax records. Something comes up the following year. In 1808, it's Benjamin Botts who actually builds 2 brick dwellings, so they're similar in both size and construction, that are designed as rental properties. And Benjamin Botts was a lawyer. He ended up actually moving to Alexandria the year after he constructed these dwellings, so they were clearly, like I said, meant to be rented out. And by 1813, that's the first fire. It's a mutual insurance policy that they took out that does a depiction of the property. So that gives us the first idea of what it really looked like. There was also a detached kitchen behind these 2 dwellings, so they would have been shared. But building in brick would have been not only a substantial investment, but again, a reaction to the fact that fire can do what fire does. And anyhow, actually, and unfortunately, Mr. Botts, just a few years later, passed away in the monumental fire in Richmond.
Thank you, Danae. You and your team at the Historic Fredericksburg Foundation have put together a wealth of information for us to enjoy about the history of Goolrick's and of downtown Fredericksburg. So much, in fact, that we'll have to ask everyone to join us again next time on Reviving Goolrick's as we explore more of this history about Goolrick's with Danae and HFFI.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Please follow us on all our socials to stay up to date with the latest happenings.